Empty. Joe Boo needs a refill. We're live. It is 6:28, so I'm a little bit early. That's all good, though. Today, we want to talk about nitrous, and I guess kind of specifically Gen 3 Hemi nitrous. So the thumbnail that I have up is from one of the single lane intake manifolds that we ran on a Gen 3 Hemi. It was a Mopar for performance piece, but as you can see, we have sandwiched a nitrous, nitrous cut, a carbureted nitrous plate basically underneath there. Now we don't have a carburetor on top of there. We have like a 4-hole throttle body, like 1,000 CFM deal or something like that. And we ran that for a bunch of testing because we also did a blow through on that using a Vortec, and or maybe we also tried a torque storm and all kinds of stuff. So anyway, we ran this, but we did run nitrous with it. So the question is going to be for tonight. In fact, maybe we'll just get a poll up there really quickly. Okay, does a Gen 3 Hemi respond differently to nitrous than an LS? So we're gonna get there, but we got to ask a couple of leading questions first of all. So the first question is, you guys can answer in the comments, and you people playing at home after this is over, you guys can answer in the comments before you watch the whole video. But the first question is, so that we can get ourselves there, is on a Gen 3 Hemi, we know that a Gen 3 Hemi, different than an LS, different than a small block Ford or big block Ford, big block Chevy, different than a small block Chevy. It's a different motor. It's its own thing, It's different even than a Magnum or all of the stuff that predates it. So it's a different kind of motor. It has different cylinder heads, different intake to exhaust flow relationships, maybe different cam needs. We're going to ask about that, different intake manifolds, all that stuff. So the first question is, does a Gen 3 Hemi respond differently to, let's say, a camshaft, cam timing, than an LS does? So for instance, if we were to take an LS grind camshaft, let's say it's a 600 lift, a 241, or not 241, 231, 247, and a 112 or 113, your typical kind of performance, 230 plus ish kind of camshaft. We run that on an LS. We'd run it, and I guess it would make a difference on whether we ran it on a, well, it wouldn't make a difference what head we ran it on, because they all do the same thing. It's just going to make a lot more power on one than the other. So the question is, if that's an LS cam or an LS cam grind, what would happen if we made a Hemi version of that? The cam itself is going to be a little different because a Hemi cam is physically different size. But if we had that kind of lift and duration, we had those specs, let's say, for a Hemi, would the Hemi respond any differently than the LS does? So that's my first question. Do we have, ostensibly, do we have Hemi-specific cam grinds? Like, is there anything special about a Hemi that makes it want, like, oh, you have to have, because we get guys telling us, oh, you have to have like a Buick responds differently to camshafts, or a Pontiac responds differently to camshafts, or a Dodge, a Gen 2 Hemi. This is a Gen 3 Hemi. So, we get that a lot, that, this has to have something specific, like it's different kinds of camshaft timing because of things that might be different about that motor. Guys can get into all kinds of esoteric stuff. It's bore, it's stroke, it's the head flow versus the displacement, the compression. You could get into all sorts of little things that you could talk about of why that's the case. But my question is that the case? Is the Hemi specific in its needs for a camshaft? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments what you guys think. And then the next question is, right now we're doing the nitrous thing on our poll. The next question is, what about nitrous? So if we answered yes, that the Hemi needs something specific to make it work that's different than other motors are, like it responds better to single pattern cams, or it doesn't respond to dual pattern cams, or it wants a dual pattern cam but wants a big split or a small split, or whatever the thing is that people want to talk about. Does it do that? So the next question is nitrous. What if we add nitrous to the equation? Does a Hemi, whether or not it needs a different cam, just being a Hemi, does it then respond differently to nitrous? So we know, or at least we should know, people that are watching this, hopefully, most of the people here that are here, on a regular basis, they've heard this spiel before because they know that all the testing that I've done on these kinds of camshafts. In fact, I had a discussion with somebody about this. It's probably been 2 weeks now, because before I went on vacation, about this, and they were insistent that no, nitrous has to have a specific camshaft. I'm like, well, let's get even more specific. Let's talk about what specific motor you're talking about, where you think the nitrous would have to have a specific camshaft to work. Because the 100 or so, I'm certainly underselling it. It's probably way more than that. The number of times that I've run added nitrous to a motor, and I don't even look at the cam specs. I really honestly don't even have to look at what the motor configuration is. You can just look at the before and the after, because that's the important thing. And that's what a lot of people don't realize, is that they never run the before thing. They don't go, oh, well, I get a lot of this in the expert engine builder, drag race guys. Well, I put this combination in and we use this camshaft because of this, because it needed more of this, because of this, and it had this, and it ate and it helped this, and then it didn't, stop this from hurting it. And they have all these explanations. And my question to them is always the same thing. Okay, you got these 1 to 4 results. You put together a motor that made lots of power, and then you add nitrous to it and it made more power, because when you add nitrous, that's what happens. But did you test it against anything else? No, we just succeeded right away. I said, well, then you don't know if you succeeded, because you didn't compare it to anything. And if you've compared it like 100 times against other camshafts, then the argument always is, well, not on this combination. On this combination, these results are specific. I'm like, no, they're not. All you've done is, let's say you added a 200 shot, you've added 200 horsepower worth of nitrous to a motor that was already making good power. So if it's making good power and you add 200 to it, then it's making even better power by like 200 horsepower. And they either refuse to understand or acknowledge the fact that if they added that same 200 shot to a motor that had a different camshaft, they would also get 200 horsepower. Because if you can, and these are all the test things that all of the test stuff, all the test questions that I have to ask when people give me dyno results. Okay, you added nitrous. Was the bottle pressure exactly the same? Was the bottle fill exactly the same? Not just the pressure. Was the fill exactly the same? Did you purge it? Was the timing the same? Was the air fuel the same? Was the oil temperature the same? Was all of that the same? Like, could you run a bunch of baseline runs on the NA thing and have it be exactly the same? And then could you run multiple nitrous runs? Hard to do with a bottle, and have the even if you could keep the pressure constant with temperature, the fill of the bottle is not going to be the same. Usually with the first hit usually is the best. The other hits after that seem to kind of stabilize, and you can get, depending on how much nitrous you're using and how big the bottle is, you can get it to be fairly consistent. Let's say, can you run NA runs that repeat one line over the other? Can you run nitrous runs without making any changes and have them repeat one over the other? As soon as you can do that, then we can make a change. Then, using that same setup on the nitrous, meaning the same pressure, temperature, fill, jet size, purge, same basic scenario that you used to activate the nitrous before, making sure that's consistent. Then you change your camshaft or whatever, and then run it again, and then you add this same amount of nitrous, because that's the critical thing is you have to add the same amount of nitrous to the 2 test parameters, to whatever these differences are. Yeah, one's a 350, one's a 400, one's a Gen 3 Hemi with a mild cam, and a Gen 3 Hemi with a medium-sized cam, let's say. When you add the same amount of nitrous, it adds the same amount of power. There isn't one camshaft that makes all of a sudden the amount of nitrous that we're adding be 300 and not 200 horsepower. Not even be 250 instead of 200 horsepower. It's going to be 200 horsepower. Or I should say, at least it always has. If you get into detail and look at the things that you're doing and make sure that all your variables are accounted for. If you do that, that's what happens. Or at least that's what has happened every time that I've tested it. And again, whenever I have this discussion with industry experts, they always want to talk about, pro mod level of stuff. I'm like, look, I don't care about the 90, the other 2% or whatever that you're talking about. I said, I don't care about that. And I would say, yeah, that's fine. If you're trying to maximize the amount of nitrous that you can get on a really big motor, and you've got giant ports, and you have everything that's specific about a pro mod motor making that kind of power, you're running multiple kits on it, and you're trying to crutch it with lots of maybe exhaust duration or something. Yeah, there's something to be said for that. You can then tailor the camshaft in so that it might help the situation that you're applying to that specific motor. But that's not for the rest of us. That's like arguing about the I don't know, piston speed or something on a Formula One motor. And on a Formula One motor, it's actually not as bad as people think because the stroke's very small. But, about, arguing about Formula One technology and then applying it to our 1500 Silverado LS motor or our 1500 Dodge Ram in this case with a 5.7 Hemi. And it doesn't trickle down like that. And it doesn't apply. The fact that you're having to go to that extreme to make that kind of case tells us something about that, tells us something about the discussion. Now, I'm dealing with junkyard guys that go to the wrecking yard and get stuff and put a cam in it. And that's my jams. That's my people. And so when we do these tests and the thing is that what I'm talking about, the group that this applies to is not this over here. That's a little tiny percentage way over here. It's all the rest of everything. And so when you have these discussions with the people, I'm like, look, just show me the dyno data where you did that. And then show me the flow meter that shows that you supplied the same amount of nitrous. Because there's always something when we talk about this, there's always something that is that's not quite right about the test results. We want that to be the case. Oh, I was able to do this because I'm double throwdown and I was able to get, 150 horsepower from the 100 shot. Yeah, you did, because it's not 900 PSI of bottle pressure. It's 1100 PSI. And now you have a lot more flow. You have now 150 horsepower worth of flow through your jet. The jet didn't limit that. The jet just dictates how much flow can go through there at a certain pressure. You've just upped the pressure. It's just, it's all simple stuff. But my point is that the first question, I honestly don't know the answer to. I don't know if a Hemi, I would think that it does, honestly. I think that a Hemi might respond to not exactly the same as an LS does to LS lobe design. So maybe Hemi stuff is going to be a little different. That's something I'd like to talk to a cam expert about, and somebody who's done the kind of testing like I do, that has done back-to-back testing specifically on that. I'd like to see that and see what happens. So I would say, yeah, that's certainly a possibility. The nitrous thing, I've yet to be convinced about that. And yet there's lots of people out there will tell you, lots of experts out there that will tell you, oh yeah, no, you got to get a nitrous cam. And you don't. You just get, whenever I tell anybody about boost, whenever I tell about nitrous, a centrifugal supercharger or whatever, look, just pick your cam for the thing that you want your cam to do. Forget about the other thing. You're not picking a cam for nitrous. You're just picking a cam because you're not going to be driving around on nitrous all the time. In fact, very, very small percentage of the time, you're going to be on nitrous unless this is only a drag race car. And every time that you run it, after you start it up and warm it up and do your burnout, that it's seeing nitrous. But that's going to be pretty rare. Most of us would just be driving around in these things, and then you hit the nitrous occasionally. That's normally what happens for street strip cars, and even like I said, unless it's a dedicated nitrous strip car and that's all that you do. Okay, then you got me there. You have a dedicated race car that only sees nitrous, but that would be very, very rare. So pick the camshaft for the other things. Do you want it to drive around? Do you want to Do you want a stock converter? Do you want fuel mileage? Do you want other things? Where do you want the thing to rev? What are you combining it with? What converter and what gears? What RPM range are you running? All of those things are way more important than the fact that you're using nitrous or not using nitrous. And that goes with any engine family. It doesn't matter. It could be Gen 3 Hemi, like this cool photo that's up. Could be LS, small block Chevy, big block, all of those. The import stuff too. You guys too. A 2JZ. I've never run nitrous on a rotary, but I think it would do the same thing. An RB, any of the Hondas, B, U, K, J, F, whatever, H, would pick whatever one you want. All of those Nissans, all of that stuff does same thing. If you add nitrous to it and you add this amount of nitrous, this is kind of what happens. So be more concerned with where you're starting with before you add the nitrous, and then how much nitrous you then can add to it. So let's see what you guys got going on. Does a Gen 3 Hemi respond differently to nitrous than an LS? No, at 83%. That's actually a pretty big number. Maine, what's in the house? I have 150 shot on my Challenger. Nice. What year is the Challenger? Frank, what's going on? Good timing. I was just listening to an old live chat about methanol injection charge cooling. All very interesting. Yep, it does cool the charge air. My mother has an 85 Rockwood with a 454. Nice. Is she the original owner? An LQ4 board 30 over, flat top, supposed to equate to LQ9, piston and compression. I have a set of 706 PRC ported with 202 valves, shave 20. This is a perfect truck motor? No, the compression is going to be very, very high for that. I wouldn't think that that's going to be a good truck motor. Unless they've done a big change in the chamber size, I would say that that's going to be too high of compression, like for a truck, unless it's a performance truck application and you're not doing towing and stuff with it. Because the static compression is high enough where you're going to have to, and I don't know what camshaft is in that, but there'd be consideration on the camshaft, and there'd be consideration on using that, running that high of compression with whatever cam you're running. I'm assuming some kind of low buck truck Norris kind of thing. If that's what you're using for, then you're going to run into detonation. So you're going to have to strip a bunch of timing out of that thing. It's all just theory as to what works and what doesn't, unless there's a before and after test. Is it cost prohibitive to engine dyno and engine many times to try different configurations? I have done that over the last 30 years, but yes, it does cost a lot. Michael just got in from the workshop. We need budget build testing. Do you mean like the junkyard motors that I do? About your low buck truck cam, what will work for the LQ4 706 head for a truck motor? The low buck truck camshaft would be the cam that I would pick, but I would have chosen lower compression than that. Rips apex seals if you add nitrous. Really, the rotary guys are not adding nitrous. I mean, they run a lot of boost. I wouldn't see why that wouldn't be an issue. Picked up stock cams in my build because they were already in the engine. Aftermarket cams for BMWs are money. Yeah, no, I get that. And especially on multiple things. On twin cams or quad cams. I've got a 2021 Challenger 1320 6.4. Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, those are cool. I like those. It's similar to a Demon, but 6.4. Comes with a trans brake, high stall, and Demon suspension. Oh, nice. So have you run it at the drag strip? Yes, everybody hit the like button. Oh, as soon as I spoke, we got a big change and we got a big swing in the Hemi. You going to do any more trophy 4-cylinder? Yes, that motor's ready to run. Getting ready to pick up 62 Tempest is wondering if a hot cam or head work would help with a bit more power. I'm sure it will. We have a cam for it. We did a regrind on it. What's your fastest land speed? Mine, we went 227 in the Civic. Is there a way to work out how much bottle pressure increase a nitrous shot? Say 100 shot is at 900 psi. What would be increased to 1100 psi? I have to ask one of the nitrous guys to see what that change in pressure is. I know that like fuel pressure, it's not going to be a direct percentage. So I would have to defer to them to find out. When 1170 is 100% stock. Is that on a stock tire, or what kind of tire did you run that on? Camden tuned, went 1090s. Nice. Is that on a drag slick? You hold my breath trying to focus that fast. It's actually not like you think at Bonneville, and especially in that car, it's front wheel drive, so it goes nice and straight. You just try to follow, like they paint a black line. Otherwise, there's no sensation of speed because it's just white everywhere. And there's not city streets going by or grandstands or any of the stuff that you see like when you're drag racing. And so the only thing that goes by every mile is a mile marker cone. That's it. So that whips by pretty fast, like 225 or so. That goes by pretty fast. But otherwise, there's not this big sensation of speed. The only thing that I'm looking at is while I'm driving, just, you just keep it straight. It moves around a little bit only because it's kind of floating around a little bit on the salt. But for me, when I was doing this, I was just staring at the air fuel meter, making sure that that was in the 11s. And then I didn't really have to check temperature because the temperature ran nice and cold. That was not a problem. Air fuel and then RPM. So I'm watching the TAC because we want to see the TAC continue to go up because that tells us that speed is going up. Factory tires, the drag radial. Okay. Is that a Dodge version of like a Copo Camaro? Most stock V8 engines seem to handle 100 to 125 shots of nitrous without problems. At what horsepower level would you start adding ring gap? I don't know. I can tell you we've run a 300 shot on a 5.3 junkyard motor that was carbureted without adding ring gap, but we eventually broke it. And again, we're doing dumb stuff because we were just seeing how much power we could make with the plate system. We just eventually took the jets out, and that's as much as that perimeter plate would do on that motor. Absolutely. I had to order. Okay. Yeah. No, that's very cool. That's fast, man. 10s that's getting with the program. I like it. And I like the way that those look. Because I would really like to have a 71. Is the lowest production number Challenger. Made it less than a Demon. Okay, cool. Can you add potassium into your water injection? The extra oxidizer can help. Are you asking if you can? I have no idea. I've never even heard of that. Gen 3 Hemi respond differently to nitrous than an LS. 71% saying no. Have you heard of anybody trying that? Or are you just looking up on the periodic table and figured that might help? Because methanol will definitely help. So will nitromethane, I'm told. But in a good way. I don't have experience gapping plugs for boost. 35 too big for 7 or 8 pounds. My engine's misfiring at full. Could be blowing out the spark. 35 at 7 pounds shouldn't be a problem. But we run all of ours down at like 18 or 19 and don't have any issues at all. That's what Jimmy is running around with. And all of the testing that we've run so far on it has all been at that we put colder plugs in it and we ran them at like 18 or 19. And it drives around fine. I don't know why people are worried about bringing the plug gap down. Oh, it's going to, I don't know, get bad fuel mileage or whatever thing that they think it's going to happen. It doesn't, none of that happens. I drove around with that Bonneville Civic one up here. I drove around on the street like that. Like we drove around it with IQ 31s, which is a really cold plug. I think it's a 10, and just drove it around like that without any problem at all. . Stock V8. Okay, the stock V8 engines. We do want to run, I still want to run the water methanol injection test. In fact, I might send that to Jimmy. We might do a water meth injection test before the turbo. So we'll just try that and see if it does anything. I would kind of like to run a carbureted draw through thing. I'm going to install a flex fuel sensor in my turbo 6-liter this weekend to run E85. Is there a suggested amount of timing to add? We've never tuned for ethanol. Where is your timing now and what is your boost at? And what fuel are you running? Log manifold versus header for turbo. Yeah, did you see the log manifold versus the header video that I put up? It'll kind of answer your question. Yeah, Michael, let me know what happens when you do that. That should solve problems. I don't know if in the factory, in the tune, if it allows you to change dwell for the coils. That helps a lot too. When we're doing aftermarket ECUs, we crank the dwell up on the gap or on the coils as well, up to 4 or 4.5 milliseconds. Plus 200 shot is 200 shot. Well, yes and no. A lot of people go tell you that a 200 shot is a given like jet size, but that's not the whole story. Bought a TIG welder. Once exams are over, I'll be practicing. Good. For longevity, 150 to 200 shots seem risky without gap, especially if the tune-up isn't right. Yeah, that can be a lot. Because the problem is it's not a lot. Like if we could have easily run 200 shots on the L33 because it already had lots of gap. But we didn't know that when we took it until we took it apart. So it could have had not very much gap. We just didn't know. And then we would have been, I would have been at fault. Having trouble keeping my nitrous bottle warm. It's winter here in Australia, and I heat my bottle in the pits and put a blanket on it. By the time I race, the bottle pressure drops a few hundred PSI. Yeah, that's a lot. Do you have the heated, like the electric bottle blankets? 8 pounds of boost, want to run 12, assuming I have traction. I'm at 14 degrees on 93 currently with ambient air in the 90s. Here, intake temp around 115 to 120. Is this intercooled? And also, is it 14 degrees at the horsepower peak or 14 degrees at the torque peak? Is it where is it 14 degrees at? Did you get a chance to look at the nitrous kit? I haven't been to West Tech yet. I was gone on vacation. I haven't been back down yet. Cheesy Key, did you want a individual fogger or did you want a nitrous plate setup? It's a bummer that getting to the rings is such a task. Oh, getting to the piston rings. Yeah, it's a lot. You don't have to take out the crank, so that's okay. Any spark tables doing test and tune at the moment. You have on BT and the S15. Yeah, I answered you, Ben. I want a photo, a screenshot of your, this is a Holly, if I remember right, of the timing table, not a graph of the table itself. So it shows me what spark you have at what RPM and what boost level. Area intercooler 14 around 4,500, then tapers to 11 or 12. See, I wouldn't do that. You have it backwards. So you're putting the most amount of timing where the most amount of detonation will happen. So you want the least amount of timing. You want lower timing at the torque peak, which is going to be in the middle of the curve somewhere. And you want more timing at the top. You can get away with more timing at 6,300 than you can at 4,500. Just getting the engine out is hard. Yeah, I agree. I do have a blanket that I run on my separate battery in the pits. I'm thinking my only option is a nitrous pressure gauge. I can see in the driver's seat and wire the blanket on with a switch. Yeah. That's the thing I love at West Tech is that we have a bottle heater. It's like a little bottle jacuzzi. It's got a heating element and it's a tank full of water. And then it has a temperature gauge on it. We just set the bottle in. And because of the thermal mass of water, I mean, this heats the bottle up really, really quickly. And then we can see and Brulee's like, look, just run it at 92 degrees. If the bottle's 92 degrees and we take it out, we shake it, move it around stuff, and then we temp gun it all the way down the length of the bottle. And when all of that hits 92 degrees, we can just run it. You can also put a gauge on it to verify that 92 is whatever number that you want. It's 1,000, it's 1,100 or something. We're not normally looking at doing back-to-back tests on stuff. Normally, we're just running nitrous and comparing it to NA. So if it's 1,000 PSI, that's good enough usually, unless we're doing dedicated like back-to-back testing. I see it's less efficient, so I need more timing. It's not that it's less efficient. It's just that for the timing to happen, for the push to happen at the right time with higher engine speed, it needs to be earlier. So it has nothing to do with efficiency, really. What pistons would you recommend for an LQ40706 heads on the low butt truck camshaft without being too much compression? I would put an LQ4 piston in it. I would put it's like a 10cc dish piston in it. To the pole, I would argue yes in large amount because I see more of them blow up on 200 shots than I do LS engines on the same shot. So do you think it's a strength problem then? Idea for small block Chevy. The idea is to improve efficiency and achieve 25 miles per gallon. I imagine high flow aluminum heads, a 1-barrel carb, and the smallest stock camshaft I can find. What else can be done to improve fuel mileage? Gearing is really important. Aero is really important. Parasitic loss, like just run it with an electric water pump and not a mechanical pump. Don't run AC and switch the alternator off. Fill the tire pressures up really, really high. Run small, narrow tires. There's lots of stuff that if you look up eco moding, all of that stuff will happen. But 25 miles per gallon in a small block Chevy, I wouldn't do it with a 1-barrel carburetor. That's not going to be necessary. I'd rather do it with fuel injection. And I would do it with fuel injection, and I'd run it. You could also run it really lean. So you could run it at 15 or 16 to 1. Unrelated to the current conversation, should I go 297 fifth gear ratio set or 266 63 gear ratio set? I'm ordering a T56. Well, what is the rest of the combination for? Max nitrous on stock bottom end, big block Chevy Gen 4 with a high-rise cast intake and a Q-jet. Also cam and factory header grade disc support cam. I don't know the answer to your question because I don't know. Did you add ring gap to this thing? The amount of nitrous that you can add to it is going to be a function actually of the NA power and not the strength of the bottom end. We've done I don't know 11 or 1200 horsepower so far with a turbo on a stock bottom end when we put ring gap in it. So that's not a strength issue problem. I think the issue you're going to run into is how much power is the NA motor making now? Because if you have a 400 horsepower big block, you're not going to be able to add very much nitrous to it because it just won't process it. If you have a 600 horsepower big block, you're going to be able to add let's say it's 50% for each one of those. One of them is 200, one of them is 300 horsepower with the nitrous. So you can add a lot more nitrous to a more powerful NA motor. I think a Hemi is weaker than the LS stock for stock. Once you build them, it's a negligible difference. Make it light. Yeah, fuel mileage is the light part under a steady state cruise. I think is less important than aero. Maybe not at 60 miles an hour if you're changing speeds from, because none of us get to drive on a billiard table flat like surface. It's always moving up and down. So light would be better than heavy, certainly. What do you think of a 2347 cam swap on a big block Chevy? I don't know why you're wanting to do that. We've done lots of 4.7 stuff. I don't know if I've done any 2.3 stuff. One of the cams that we had was a 4.7 swap cam. I didn't care about it. It just was a cam that was there when I needed a cam to test. And it ended up working out really well, not because it was a swap cam, but because of the lift and duration and stuff that it had. And it was the right kind of cam to achieve what we're doing to achieve. I think that firing order swaps are more for harmonics than they are for power. 50% of the all motor. Yeah, 50% of the power output of the naturally aspirated motor is a good rule of thumb for nitrous. For fuel economy, I'm screwed with my 2UZ 100 series. Yeah, that's not ideal. The more aerodynamic the thing is, obviously, is better. Have you heard of a carb cheater? It's a computerized vacuum valve thing that automatically adjusts your air fuel on a carb engine. The inventor achieved 36 miles per gallon with a lawnmower carburetor on Power Tour. I have seen the lawnmower thing, but yeah, it's a feedback carburetor. I mean, the factory had feedback carburetors and they actually worked fairly well for cruise. So if you can do that and you can get the thing to run lean, so getting it to lean burn, like the size of the carburetor, I don't know that has a big effect unless it's an atomization thing. But even then, I just don't think, like, actually, if you think about it, and anybody that does eco moding will tell you this, and any engineer will tell you this, if you put a really tiny carburetor on it and you have lots of draw through it, all of that vacuum hurts fuel mileage. So the ideal thing is to be at wide open throttle and have none of that vacuum. That's where the best fuel mileage is. You can't do that for various reasons, but that's why BMW that's why they did their trick that they did, where they were controlling the, they weren't doing it with a throttle blade. They were controlling it with, I think it was valve timing on the BMWs. And so that's one of the reasons why a diesel engine gets better fuel mileage than a gas engine is there's no valving. There's no vacuum between the blade and the rest of the motor. Generally speaking, taller gear ratios can handle more torque. Not sure if that's a concern. Twin turbo, 2-valve, 4.6 ported PI heads on a non-PI block. The only thing I would be concerned with, Prestige, on yours is whatever final drive you have, and then the top gear, what your cruise RPM is going to be with those cams. Because I can tell you from experience that those cams are not happy at low engine speeds, having had them in my Mustang. Biggest and most important thing to remember when filling nitrous bottles is do not fill it all the way. A 10-pound bottle, fill it to 8.5 to 8 3/4 pounds. Headspace is vital to reducing pressure drop during a run. Aero on the bottom. Yeah, all aero counts. So form drag counts. The low pressure area back behind the car, all of that is, you can address all of that and it will help with fuel mileage. Used to buy a 10-pound bottle or 2 of nitrous every week for the fun. Yeah, that is cool. They will send you the fix kit for free if you order the trans from them. Would a D1 SC on a 408 be too small? You need to tell me what your desired power level is. There are some tricks for fuel mileage like D-cell cut and lean burn, but once you get close to OEM tuning, it's not worth chasing the last few percentage. Harmonics is the whole idea. The lower is, the better off you'll be on the top end above the curve of the motor RPM wise. Not that. That's not what they're thinking. I mean, that could be part of it, but like when they went to the LS firing order, it wasn't because they wanted more top end performance. They went to the LS firing order because they were changing the harmonics of the motor. They wanted things to last longer, basically. 10-pound bottle will hold 11 pounds, but with no headspace, the pressure drops off hard and the car goes rich and fat really fast. Mine won't be light, and I want to run the Texas Mile. Plus, I live in West Texas and have to drive on a 75-mile-per-hour highway. Okay. The question still, if you're going to do a mile, are you going to be in 6th gear at the end of the mile? If you are doing that and you're concerned about like what we do for Bonneville is the 5th and 6th gear, if you're using both of those, have that split be close together. Nitrous engines or NA, would you say that certain fuels could be considered power adders? Well, yeah, there are fuels that will help it make more power. Nitromethane, obviously one of the big ones. BMW Valvetronic uses the intake valve as the throttle valve. Variable cam, timing, and lift. Yeah, that's the one that I was referring to. That way they only have vacuum. There would be no vacuum in the intake manifold then. They would have eliminated most of that. I'm not sure how much they changed fuel mileage for that. Get away, what's going on? Diesels are a whole other discussion. The fundamentals are the same, but strategy to get there is different. So going for a good top speed in fourth gear while not having a stupid long first, it's going to be paired with a 411 axle and 26-inch tires, so it puts me about 2,100 RPM at 75 miles an hour in top gear. Okay. So you think you're only going to be running the first 4 gears then in a standing mile? Then cruise RPM would be your only thing. Yeah, Ben, I'll take a look at that. I got the email. I put a turbo on the 2UZ if they're known to be robust like the 1UZ, but all the supercharger kits are max 400 horsepower, which tells you that that's the limit. Is that a problem? I doubt that motor is limited to 400 horsepower. I doubt that it hurts itself at 400 horsepower because a 2UZ probably is already close to that NA, right? Nitromethane on the 3rd gen has to be crazy. I'd like to see the dyno session. Yeah, I'd like to try it on something. We'll try it on some sort of junkyard motor, I'm sure. But it would be cool, just because I never have. Top speed in fourth will be above 150, which is fine. Well, there's Brady, huh? Is it? It's not time yet, is it? 42 minutes. I still got like 20 minutes. I do. I have like 20 minutes. Did mommy give you some food, huh? Give you something to drink, huh? You want to come up? Get up here. You're not going to go over here. Okay. Okay, sweet. Okay, go get mommy. Go get her. Tom, what's going on? Seeing 1UZ stock bottom end make 900. Yeah, I don't understand why those would be, necessarily any weaker than small block Chevys or LSs or Hemis or any of those things. I mean, I've never seen the inside of one, but if history is any indication, that Toyota knows how to make pretty good motors. And they always make it more robust, obviously. And I think particularly in trucks, because people don't treat trucks very nicely. Looks like we've changed a little bit. Does a Gen 3 Hemi respond differently to nitrous than an LS? 6733. So we're 2/3 and 1/3. That will be the end of our poll. Not because I was wanting it to be, but because I pushed the wrong button. I have a Tremec for the Mustang, and we're doing the American Powertrain, their clutch assembly and everything. So that'll be cool. I'm thinking about getting one for the RB also for the Z. If you're, why not buy multiples of those, right? Because they're so inexpensive. They're not, though. They are definitely not. So on this photo that we have here, where is it? Here we go. Let me take a look at this thing. Yeah, so that's that Mopar Performance. This was a Zex, even though we have the Wilson side hack plate there on it, but it's a perimeter plate, a Zex perimeter plate, and they're solenoids. I can't remember if that's an AccuFab 4-hole throttle body. Probably is. We used a lot of their stuff. It's got factory fuel rails on it. We did put bigger injectors in it. I'd have to go back and look at the results and see what else was done to that motor when we were running the nitrous setup. But one thing I can almost guarantee is that it added the amount of power that it should. Regarding the poll, I actually don't know, but voted no because nitrous is nitrous and the engine doesn't kaboom if the engine doesn't blow up. That's right. That's exactly right. In case you're curious, that gearing will put me at 300 with enough runway, making 1200 eventually before I take it to salt one day and prove that I have aero. Okay, good luck with that. I used the Tremec calculator to give me 100 miles an hour in third gear at 6,500 with a 28 tire. Okay. I use a Tremec calculator and I love it. I should go on there and look because I should upgrade my status. I have the auto math book and I just use their formula for that. In fact, if you look at I have a folder with, in fact, this might be it right here. Yeah, this. Let's see if we can get that. See all that? Those are all my old school calculations. That's all for the sprint. For the different gearing and mile an hour and various tires and gear ratios and RPM and stuff. And because I want to see, I never just do it for one set. I do it for, hey, just in case we're going to change this. Richard, have you ever heard of a cold, low PSI nitrous tuning? Increase all the jets and the lines and jets on the system to increase the flow and lower pressure to get the same pounds of hour. I haven't seen that. Nitrous above torque peak can make big numbers on stock bottom end stuff. Yeah, that's where we were trying to hit it when we were doing the Big Bang nitrous deal. And Brule likes to do that too. Likes to run the nitrous like right at the end of the run, above the torque, the peak torque normally. A lot of times we've run them from way before peak torque, all the way through peak torque, all the way to peak horsepower. So we got a big long hit of nitrous. People love seeing that kind of graph. I just don't know how often that's done. I mean, if you do it right on the hit, I guess. On the cold, low PSI tuning, if you get the same amount of nitrous, I would think that would work. The one thing that I do want to try, and this is something that I got as information from one of the guys over in England, one of the things that they're doing, and this would certainly help. One of the things against that is that, well, no, maybe not. As long as the same amount. What I'm trying to cure, and what I think if I understood what he was saying correctly, is one of the things that is the downside of nitrous is, and we showed that in the video that I have up, where we added nitrous with an air hat on it and show how much less airflow the motor takes in when we run nitrous on it. So every time you run nitrous, because you're supplying nitrous and fuel, it's displacing some of the air that can be processed by the motor. That's why when I tell you that if you run, trying to run a 300 shot on a 300 horsepower motor, that's hard to do because you displace a lot of the airflow, and now the motor just doesn't want to work. And one of the ways to cure that is to inject the nitrous all the way down at the valve. And so you don't displace the airflow in the intake manifold. Now, I haven't tried that, so I don't know how well it works. Like, I'd like to see it like a direct port nitrous setup. I don't know how you would make that work. That's why I think that he was talking about snaking the tubes or whatever down close to the valve, if I remember right. You would still have, depending on how it was aimed, there might still be some displacement, but maybe it would be better. And therefore, you could, with the same amount of nitrous flow, maybe make more power because you wouldn't be subtracting some of the NA power, maybe? I don't know. I'm curious to try it and see if it works. instead of having to heat the bottle to get up to pressure, and oftentimes you have to chill the bottle, tune the system to be optimized at 600 psi. Instead of 950 to 1,000. Yeah, you could do that. You could go up in jetting, and I wonder if I wonder if savvy guys at the track have that calculation. I would imagine if they're nitrous guys, they probably do. If they go, okay, if the bottle's at 1,100 and we want to make this amount of power, we run this nitrous jet or these jets, maybe if it's a fogger setup or whatever. Okay, if it's down to 1,000 or 900 or 800 or 600, whatever the number is, a 600 bottle pressure would have me concerned about the fullness of the bottle, but I guess it could be cold enough where that would be a possibility. But as long as you're flowing that amount of nitrous, I would assume that it would work. Blowing up my fair share of motors, hitting the spray off the line. Yeah, I blew up an airbox on my Mustang one time with a backfire. It was very loud. I thought that we hurt the motor, but it didn't. Which was good because I had to drive it home because it was the car that I drove to the track because it was the only car that I had. And that was up at I think that was up at LACR, I think, when that was open. Excuse me, that was quite a while ago. You could do an intake pressure reference pressure regulator and run exactly 600 psi pressure differential for exact shots every time. How are you going to regulate it to? How are you going to regulate the feed with an open setup to 600 psi with an open in the other area? Maybe you could do that. Maybe a regulator would do that. It'd be interesting. I'd like to try new stuff with nitrous. That the one that I was talking about would be interesting. I have to toss ice bags and the bottles in the car on the stage lane to keep the pressure from creeping up on the hot summer months. It does get hot. It does change things. Just throwing out theories because like some of these pro guys will purge 3 pounds of nitrous to hit the right bottle pressure. Is that what they're doing? I didn't think that they were purging it to get the bottle pressure where they wanted it. I thought that they were purging it just to make sure that the initial hit was all nitrous. But I'm not a drag race expert. Even though I play one on TV. I don't really. Okay, we will save that one. And we will save that one. And we'll go over here to our downloads. And then we will copy it. And then we will paste it. Copy that, and paste. Copy that, Maverick. I see a lot of vented nitrous at XRP. I like when they do the nitrous displays when they show what a million shot is or whatever. Hit it with all the fogger nozzles and all the plates and everything and like float the manifold around. It's It's pretty cool. It's like it's possessed. It's flying. What you want to do is run your purge out so that it aims at the other guy's inlet so that he's running nitrous off the line that doesn't have extra fuel. Now I do like nitrous purging if they do it with style. Like I think Chad did his coming out the antenna. And you know, if you do something that does it spins a pinwheel or makes a noise or whatever, comes out your foghorns or whatever, it's just something clever, just something that's good. I like to see that. Let's get a little showmanship. Because if you're going to do it, you might as well, go all in. Mains in the house. LED lights that make the purge gas glow. Yeah, that's good. Seen that at the drag strip. Yeah. Then it's like a rave party. Nice plum to look like my Cobra emblem is breathing nitrous. I've seen that too. I've seen it come out the fangs and stuff. All that's good. That's all great stuff. Manufacturers will have the flow data for the nozzle plates and are measured in pounds per hour. So the easy button is just tossing the jets off the simple chart. Yeah, there you go. LEDs at the base look cool. I agree. It's cool. Now I want a little rotating disco ball and all that, you know. Got 2 more minutes. Brady already came and got me. He's like, hey. So Owen and I went and picked up fireworks today. So that was good. I always spend too much. And usually we have stuff left over too. So we go to a neighbor city that's where the fireworks are legal and go light them and stuff. Because that's, you know, that should be part of your childhood. It's good stuff. Plus, I like lighting stuff. It's fun. It's good times. Yeah, I saw Lisa sent me a thing on the fireworks thing that went up. That happened. Seems like it happens every year. They need to have has anybody made a nitrous horn like the locomotives have? Like they got the big air going through them, like you see in all the cartoons. Make a chatterbox that will chatter the purge solenoid and make it sound like a machine gun. That's also good. All of that's fantastic. They need to make one that makes a little UFO take off and fly away. That'd be good. It's getting hot in here. I did get up early and go run today. Took the dogs, went for a run like you're supposed to. It's important. So make sure to go get those turbos. We got turbos. We got lots of turbos. I was worried when we did the first test. So I'm going to go do some more now. When we did the first test, we sold out all of our turbos very fast. So we ordered a bunch of them. So we got a bunch now. Down there and there and there. And I'm excited to try the new versions too. The G35s. I'm curious about response on those. We know that they're going to make more power, the newer versions compared to the GTX. But I mean, one's rated at like 950, one's rated at 1050. So you might only be able to take advantage of that extra 100 horsepower or whatever, on a 2J or on something like that, or an RB or a K series. But they will definitely make more power, I think. I just want to make sure that they would be as responsive. They're ball bearing turbos too, so obviously they're going to be more money than a GTX would be. I have hooked up a purge solenoid to an 18-wheeler air horn setup. A stupid loud till broke a diaphragm, but it did work though. That's kind of cool. That's good. But I was thinking the little whistles that they pull the little string on the trains, the old locomotives, because I think that they were fed by like air pressure or something. So that would be cool. What else could you do? There'd be lots of cool stuff. Calvin just posted on Facebook. Looks like he made headers for the North Star. That's cool. Calvin and his dad do a lot of cool stuff. He's doing a lot of work for a North Star. I hope he got some cams ground. Hopefully to help the thing make more power. I mean, with anything, if you put cams and ported head and short runner intake manifold on it, put boost on it, it's going to be fun, right? It's going to be party time. Hate Train, Texas No Prep has a big train horn on it. Okay, that's cool. I'll have to check it out. Yeah, I mean, there's no new ideas. I'm not going to come up with something that some short people haven't already done the cool side on. We didn't have interwebs back then. Learn the hard way. Why is the spark plug electrode getting shorter? What's all this speckly stuff all over? You ever heard of nano nitrous systems? I have. I think that might have been what I was just talking about. Does anybody make aftermarket counts for the North Star? And I haven't heard of any. That's what I'm saying. It would almost have to be a regrind. It would almost have to be. Information was hard to get in 1980s Australia, I would imagine. Well, we weren't doing much better here in the 80s. We were FMU in it. Vortec, FMU, Hope, Wing and a Prayer, just turn the distributor a little bit, take some timing out of it. And then they came out with the magic thing was the timing retard, the boost timing retard. That was fantastic. Because if you could get that out, you could make the fuel system work. Especially Pro-M stepped in with their bigger meters, which help air going into the blower. Put bigger injectors in it. Man, we ran 36s back in the day and a 75 millimeter throttle body. You mean you ran a stock 5.3 truck size stuff? Yeah, that's all. We had all that back in the day. On that note, it is time to go. Thanks again, guys, for good live feed. Make sure to check out richardholdenberperformance.com, and I will be back tomorrow. I do know a guy.